Hey everybody, Danny Maude here. Thanks for joining us. This week I'm going to deal with how do you start hitting the ground behind the golf ball. It's a horrible shot, isn't it? You know, you make a decent swing, or at least what you think is a decent swing at the golf ball. The club comes in behind the golf ball. You hit this fat shot, ball travels nowhere, or alternatively, you hit the ground behind the golf ball and then the ball, you hit up on the ball and the ball thins along the ground. Neither's very good, and it is so frustrating, particularly if you've just hit that wonderful drive. So what I'm going to do this week is I'm going to show you exactly what's happening at the moment of impact and why you're possibly hitting the ground behind the golf ball. And I'm going to give you some examples of a couple of my clients this week where they were doing exactly that, and we managed to cure them in a session with just a couple of drills. So I'll give you those drills today. So what is a fat shot? What is actually happening when you catch the ground behind the golf ball? Well, if you're hitting the ground here as opposed to here, then two things potentially happening. You are releasing the club too early in the downswing here, so the club is bottoming out behind the golf ball, as opposed to, look at the angle I'm keeping here in the wrist here, and the club bottoms out later, after the golf ball. That's the first thing. And the second thing that you may be also doing is this. Your body is too far behind the golf ball as you're approaching it, causing again the club to bottom out, leaving that fat shot, right? So if you're doing one of those two things, or maybe even both, often they can come together. I'm going to show you today how we get over them. What can we do to start to get either the body more over the ball, or the wrists releasing a little bit later. So the very first thing is, let's start with the simple one. I think one of the biggest problems when people start to struggle to strike the golf ball, they spend so much time trying to strike the golf ball that it encourages more of this. Let me explain. So what are we trying to do? What is a great strike? A great strike is when the golf club, all right, this bottoming out here happens ideally after the golf ball. The problem is, if you've been striking a few shots that have been pretty poor, it's not always easy to have the confidence to not concern yourself over strike. So what tends to happen is we stand over the golf ball here with such a need to strike that ball that we stay dead still. Yeah, you may even be trying to keep your head down, an eye on the ball and all that kind of thing in order to please strike that golf ball. Here's the problem though. When you're trying to do that and you're trying to stay still and make sure you make contact, your body's not moving, right? And when your body doesn't move, look, there's not a lot of space now to hit the shot. So what happens is often the body creates space by leaning back. Okay, does that make sense? So what you're doing is in an effort to strike the ball, and you make that your focus, you're trying so hard to strike it that you stay very still. The body doesn't have enough room now, and then it creates room by often leaning back, and that might give you the feeling that you've lifted your head up, and that gets you hitting the ground behind the golf ball. So the first one is a matter of trust. One of the things we want to do, look, we want to get the body past the golf ball, we want to get the club releasing later. So we've got to start to trust that a strike is created by a natural flow through the shot, as opposed to something that is trying to stay still and make sure that we strike it. Now that's not easy to do if you've been striking it poorly, because you have this over concern. So the first thing I want you to do is I want you to start to practice flowing through to your target. Let's have a look from behind. So as opposed to just focusing on the ball and hoping that you're going to strike the ball, what I want you to do is look, we want to get our bodies not behind the ball, do it? In fact, we want to get them forward of the golf ball. We want to get that through the shot. So I want to start you getting some time, spending more time visualizing where you're going and flowing through to your target, as opposed to trying desperately to improve that strike, right? The improvement of your strike will be a byproduct of the flow going through to your target. It'll require a bit of trust. So when we're here, make a few swings, and what we're going to do is I'm going to spend a bit more time flowing out, look, towards my target there. That's where I'm going. That will give you and encourage more of a body movement through the shot and really increase the likelihood that you're going to hit ball turf contact. So now let me show you what I did with one of my recent clients, Russell, to help him strike that ball so much better. And I use this for a lot of my exercises. I like to reverse engineer the process. So what do we want to try and do? We said, look, we want to get our body more over the golf ball here with a shaft lean. That's how we stop striking behind the ball and we start striking after the golf ball, right? So if we want to strike after the golf ball, what does that look like? We're trying to create a divot after the ball. So to create a divot after the golf ball, the leading edge of this golf club needs to create that divot. So it needs to be angled forward here so it can cut into the turf, right? So let's put that there. So I've put a ball now in line with the camera. I'm going to put my club look after the golf ball because that's where we reverse engineer the process, because I want to lean that leading edge now into the turf. Look at the shaft. I want to then put a force on it. Now, when you do put the force on it, we're pushing it this way. We're going to push the force this way. We're not going to push it that way, okay, not over the top. So, leading edge cuts into the ground. We're going to put our weight forward, and that's the sensation now of impact. So now we've got the destination point, right? So we're going to now swing back, and we're going to swing to that destination point after the golf ball. Swing back, move to the destination point and stop, right? Feel that motion. Swing back, move to the destination. Now what we're going to do is we're going to push that destination a little bit further, right? So what would it lead to? People who swing behind the golf ball, hit the ground behind, they tend to be in a flick position, right? People who tend to strike the ground after the golf ball tend to be in a stronger situation here, right? So look at this. There's no flick around here. I feel almost nearly all my weight now is on my left side. So I want you now to reverse engineer that. So how do we get into that position? Weight nearly 90% on my left side. I'm going to come back now to my start position, and I'm going to now push through to there. That's my destination. I'm going to go back to my start position, and I'm going to push through to my destination. Do I still have 90%? Yes, I do. You might find when you first do this that you've got the idea of the destination, but you do this. But then you can ask yourself, look, where's my weight? I still got so much weight on my right side, right? So once you know the destination, you simply then start to kind of feel that by pushing through. Stop there, get that sensation, move it back. Now, we gradually move it back further. So we're going to go to destination, now to about here, and through. We're at the destination again, move back a bit further, and through. Move back a bit further, and through, and bit by bit you can see I'm now starting to take a divot after that golf ball. Start very slowly with it. Start with the feeling first of it, where you need to be, right? Feel how much weight's on that left side. Feel the leading edge digging into the ground. Then go back, push through. From this position here, we're going to start to work on trying to transfer that feeling to hitting a golf ball. Now again, I'm going to start small. So I may do one exercise before we go, which might be put the club past the golf ball, feel that sensation. That's where we want to be. Right, okay, got it. Now, come back to the golf ball, make a small swing. That's where I'm going to. That was a great strike. A real ball turf contact, and you probably see that from where the ball was to where it is now. Really, really good strike. So this is a way for you to train the ball turf contact, which is going to be there after the shot, not before, all right? So that's the second, and that when we worked with Russell on this one, it worked so effectively. It's going to take some time to practice on the driving range, but go and give this a go. You'll really enjoy it. So let's summarize. What are you doing if you're striking the ground behind the golf ball? You're either releasing the club too early or your body's a bit too far behind the golf ball. So we've got to make sure that at some level we've got to get the body over the ball here, and we've got to release the club a little bit later. The first thing we gave you was an exercise which is super simple but requires a bit of trust. For those of you who are struggling to strike it, you've probably lost a little bit of confidence around your strike. So what you're tending to do is stay a little bit too still over the golf ball here, right? And that stops the body moving, doesn't provide enough space for you to hit through the shot, so your body leans back, you may even get the feeling that you've lifted your head up, and that causes the the ground ball contact. So what we want to do is start to trust ourselves a bit more, start to allow ourselves to flow through to the target, be willing to mess up a little bit, right? A great strike is a byproduct of a flowing golf swing that moves to the target. So I often say to my kids, pose for the cameras. Stand there and just pose for the cameras. That would be a really nice exercise to do, and a super simple one to start with. For more training, what I would do is, which I did with a recent client of mine, Russell, is start to look at striking or reverse engineering the entire process. So we look at getting the club after the golf ball here. So we think, right, what needs to happen to strike the ground after the ball? The leading edge needs to be into the turf, right? Move into that position, feel what it's supposed to be like, go back into setup, and then move back into it. Setup, move back into it. From there, what I would also do is then push on even further. So what would need to, once you've got the divot here, where would you go from here? Push forward. Look at this motion here. I've got so much weight now on my left side, and I'm extending out here. Right, go back into setup, push forward, right? Just one thing to watch out for. When you do push forward, I'm not saying don't do that. That's an over the top motion. Make sure you're coming from the inside as you're doing it. So it's lean forward, right there. This will then, what you need to do after that, so once you've gone through into this position here, then start to extend the backswing just a little bit. So as opposed to starting here now, extend it back and push forward. Extend it back a bit, push forward, until you keep reiterating and you start seeing the club consistently connecting to the ground after the golf ball. And then obviously go bigger and bigger and bigger, and you're going to start to see those strikes starting to become more and more consistent. Be willing to mess up. Don't worry about the strike as much as possible. Forget about the strike. Let's start to get that lovely ball turf contact with you committing through the shots. All right, I really hope you enjoyed this, and if you did, please share it. It really, really helps. And of course, if you've got any of your friends that could benefit from this, ping it over to them. If you've got any questions at all, don't forget to leave them in the comments box below, or head over to my social media channels on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. And until next week, have a great golfing week.